Welcome, I'm Suresh Kochattil. This was something that was waiting to happen. After Justin Trudeau committed another of the numerous blunders by accusing India of a hand in the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, the real issue was that Nijjar was not an innocent plumber, but a wanted terrorist in India. Canada is home to a dozen such organizations which owe their allegiance to the Khalistani cause, but is scared to touch any of them. After the initial tit-for-tat expulsions of a diplomat each, India has now asked 41 Canadian diplomats to leave India in 10 days. The reason, couched in diplomatic language, says that it has to have a parity in the number of diplomats that Canada and India has in their respective countries. The Indian government also flagged that Canada has an additional Deputy High Commission in India, which obviously has to be shut down. To make the point clear, India has threatened to strip off the diplomatic immunity if any of the 40-odd Canadian diplomats does not leave the country before October 10th. Canada presently has 62 diplomats in India, while New Delhi has told them to reduce that headcount to 41 at the High Commission and consulates, according to Financial Times. On previous occasions, India has said that it wanted an equal number of diplomats posted in the country and Canada. At its High Commission in Delhi, Canada has over a dozen diplomats posted compared to what India has in Ottawa. Declaring more Canadian diplomats persona non grata wouldn't help the situation and would make it reducing emotions associated with this disagreement more difficult, says Peter Baum, chair of the Canadian Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Trade, as he was quoted by the Financial Times. India saw Canada as an easy mark, he asserted, and New Delhi was aware that Ottawa's limited capacity to retaliate since Justin Trudeau runs a minority government. Trudeau, who is the leader of the Liberal Party, shares the power with Indian origin and Canadian Sikh leader Jagmeet Singh, who heads the New Democratic Party. India knows that Canada's capacity to retaliate is limited and that it has a minority government and is aware of the consequent politics at play. India also knows that the international community will not play ball as US, UK, Australia and others need India to counter China. An unprecedented diplomatic crisis has emerged between India and Canada after Trudeau in September 18 said that the Canadian security agents have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between the Indian government agents and the killing of Nijjar. India, which designated Nijjar as a terrorist in 2020, has outrightly rejected Canada's allegations, calling them absurd and motivated. Nijjar, the chief of the banned Khalistan Tiger Force, was shot dead outside a Gurudwara in Surrey in British Columbia, in Canada, in June. India expelled a Canadian diplomat in a tit-for-tat response to Canada's expulsion of an Indian official in the case. New Delhi has also suspended the visa service for Canadian nationals. On September 26, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, in a real dig at Canada, asked the United Nations member states not to allow political convenience to determine responses to terrorism, extremism, and violence. He made the comments while addressing the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. This latest face-off comes at a time when India is said to be looking at reducing exports of lentils from Canada and would instead buy from African nations. The reduction in headcount at the Canadian High Commission and consulates is another way to ensure that Canada will not have the bandwidth to issue visas to students from India looking to study in Canada. More crackdown by the Indian government is expected, including the refusal of loans to students who the government of India feels have secured admission in substandard universities in Canada. The Indian government is likely to draw up a list of second-grade colleges and universities, and Indian banks will be advised not to fund student loans to these shady institutions. India will also cut down its imports from Canada and is also prepared for any retaliatory action by Canada. Bilateral trade between India and Canada has seen a significant growth in recent years, reaching as much as $8.16 billion in 22-23. India's exports, on the other hand, totals about $4.1 billion to Canada. That's just half of its imports, which includes pharmaceuticals, gems and jewelry, textiles and machinery. While Canada's exports at $4.06 billion include pulses, timber, pulp and paper and mining products. All these can come from countries which are friendly with India, and Canada is not one of them. In the Q1 financial year of 23-24, India's exports to Canada were worth about 9, while imports from Canada were worth about 990 million. That's almost even Stevens. In terms of personal remittances, India received nearly 859.83 million in personal remittances from Canada in financial year 22, as per the World Bank data. According to industry projection, the comprehensive economic partnership agreement between Canada and India has the potential to enhance the bilateral trade by up to 6.5 billion, leading to an estimated GDP increase of 3.8 billion to 5.9 billion for Canada by 2035. And India can hurt Canada here. The Invest India page on Canada shows the country is the 17th largest foreign investor in India, with an overall investment of about 3,306 million from April 2000 to March 2023. The Canadian investment is a minuscule 0.5% of the total foreign direct investment inflows into India. That's nothing. On the other hand, India was Canada's 9th largest trading partner in 22. Services and infrastructure together accounted for 40.63% of the total foreign direct investments from Canada to India. More than 600 Canadian companies have a presence in India, and more than 1,000 companies are actively pursuing businesses in the Indian market, and all of them will be hit. A few of the notable names include Bombardier and SNC-Lavalin. So in this war of words, Canada has more to lose. The Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board has made several investments in India. The recent filings show that these investments total to over 1 lakh crore Indian rupees. Canadian pension funds will continue to invest in India on the grounds that India is a large market and good return on money invested. Experts have also said that the fresh tensions between India and Canada are unlikely to impact trade and investments between two countries, as the economic ties are driven by commercial considerations. But the biggest blow to the Canadian government will be if Government of India discourages students from India to actively study in Canada. According to data from Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, a total of 226,450 visas were approved for Indian students in the year 2022. Of these, a significant portion of approximately 1.36 lakh students hail from Punjab, pursuing various courses with an average duration of 2 to 3 years. Indian students who go to Canada for a post-secondary education spend a whopping $20 billion every year. Such a huge amount of money pouring in every year from India to Canada underlines the importance of Canada-India ties. Rising consumer demand in India not only boosts the Indian economy, but is now contributing to foreign economies too. One has to understand why Canada encourages Indian students with its easy visa procedure. For that, one has to understand how Indians fund the Canadian education system. College fees constitute a significant part of the total annual expenditure of Indian students in Canada. And the Indian money is going into the education sector in Canada has made headlines in recent times. Indian students have even left behind the Government of Canada in funding a public education system in their country. Yes, Indian students fund the education of Canadian students. For example, international students from India have outpaced the Government of Ontario, a province in Canada, in funding public colleges. Tuition fees for international students is 3 times of that of the domestic students from Canada. That means 76% of all the tuition fees in this sector come from international students. A recent report published by the Higher Education Strategy Associates, a Toronto-based consulting firm that provides research, analysis and strategic advice related to higher education. All in all, Canada will lose out big time in this standoff with India. If only Justin Trudeau had the basic common sense not to fall into the trap set by the Khalistani terror sympathizers, Canada could have avoided this mess. Now that he has stirred the pot, he might as well find a way out. Quitting his job is one thing, but that won't help. India wants terror groups operating in Canada to be shut down and their fund managers and operators to be handed over to India. The question is, who will blink first? Let's wait and watch. Jai Hind.
Please subscribe to Nationalist Hub English channel for more interesting videos, and don't forget to like and share this video. Nationalist Hub, it's a news revolution.